Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's PC gaming news. Today we'll be checking out the several remakes of Paragon in development. You heard me right, there are more than one. There's also a reboot of the action combat MMO RaiderZ in the works, and I want to talk a bit about Lost Ark. They did recently release a video, but I'm just more so talking about the fact that I've played for like 60 hours and I'm really enjoying the game. Beyond that, we've also got some new updates for Mortal Online 2, Embers Adrift plans to release this year. There's the VR MMO Zenith coming soon, Jedi Fallen Order 2 is going to be a thing, and a few more stories before we wrap up with some of the new game reveals and recent releases. Before we jump into all of that though, let's get a brief word from today's sponsor. Today's video is being sponsored once again by Conqueror's Blade. This is the free-to-play tactical MMO set in a vast open medieval world where you pick a warlord, build your army, and then battle other players in all-out war. The game features 15 vs 15 online siege battles where you either have to defend your castle or go on the offensive to take down the enemy. You're able to create and customize your own warlord. These are powerful commanders with their own unique weapon classes and playstyles. There are over 80 diverse units that vary between melee, range, cavalry, and more. And you can play and join forces with players from around the world. Now, currently they are celebrating Season 10 Highlanders. Now, Season 10 comes with the addition of 3 new units inspired by the rich culture and history of Scotland, a brand new siege map set in the Highlands, a battle pass with over 100 season exclusive rewards, and new features like face tattoos and quality of life changes like an updated UI. So if you're interested in trying out Conqueror's Blade and checking out the new Season 10 update and getting a free 7 days of premium, go ahead and click on the link in the description below. All right, now back to this week's PC gaming news. If you recall back to the time before Epic was synonymous with Fortnite, you might remember that they used to make other games. Well, one of those games was the third-person MOBA by the name of Paragon. 2 teams of 5 competed to push through 3 lanes, taking on towers, waves of creeps, and enemy players until they eventually could reach and destroy their base. It was the standard MOBA formula, but in third person and running on Unreal Engine 4. Well, the game launched in 2016, and while it seemed to have its fair share of fans, never really managed to reach a popularity satisfying enough for Epic, because let's be real, Fortnite, so they eventually decided to shut the game down in early 2018. The kicker though is while they were not going to be supporting the game anymore, they were going to make it possible for anyone else. Shortly after shutting down, they released every Paragon asset to be used by anyone completely free of charge. The entire game was basically just available to be remade, essentially. Well, I'm here 4 years later to inform you that that very thing is happening. Paragon is being recreated by 3 separate studios, in fact. The first game, Fault, is actually already playable. It came to Steam Early Access in July 2020, but unfortunately doesn't appear particularly good. Steam reviews are mixed, and it's hovering around 250 peak concurrent daily players, so probably best to avoid this one unless there are some major changes and updates. The second game, Overprime, is described as utilizing the assets of Paragon, but succeeding the previous title, providing a brand new 3D third-person shooter MOBA experience for users while benchmarking with smooth, high-quality graphics of that previous title. This one has no set release date, although they are going to be running a closed beta test this month, starting on January 22nd. Checking out some of the gameplay, it sure does look a lot like Paragon, while also having a few of its own unique twists. And then lastly, there is the game Predecessor, which does appear to be the most authentic recreation, at least from everything that I've read and seen. They are literally looking to just remake the game in its entirety before it was shut down. So if you're interested in playing Paragon and not a game kind of like Paragon, it seems like Predecessor is going to be the one to keep an eye on. While the fact that there are multiple Paragon recreations in the works is interesting, I do wonder what would have happened if Epic had stuck it out instead of diverting all focus onto Fortnite. Not that I blame them, because for a time, Fortnite was one of the most popular games in the world, so of course they decided to go all hands on deck. But still, odds are Paragon would have had its own little pocket of success if they kept on developing it, but that's really just not the reality that we live in. Epic's Paragon is dead, and now we're left with well, Fault, Overprime, or Predecessor. We'll see if any of these make a splash. And since we're on the topic of revitalizing dead games, I want to tell you about the official reboot of the action combat MMO RaiderZ. Now, this was actually announced back in 2017. The developer of the original game said that even though the publisher shut the game down, they wanted to continue working on it. Now, things have been fairly quiet since that announcement, but it does look like we're getting ever closer to actually getting to see this new game in action. Over on the RaiderZ Facebook page, we recently got a fairly lengthy post detailing some of the various changes that will be coming to the game. These include overhauls to the classes, skills, and character creation. Namely, there will no longer be classes. Instead, you'll just make your own character, and then you'll get to select which active and passive skills you want to use. Passive skills will come in the form of a giant tree that you get to select which ones you want from, and then the active skills come through the stones that you will actually place into your gear. So they are going with just a full-on classless system, a build your own class kind of MMO. They've also made changes to the story, the world zones, as well as instancing. So the game is going to consist of these open field areas where you can basically run around collecting resources and fighting groups of enemies. But then there will be smaller instance locations like cities where players can hang out and pick up quests and interact with vendors, as well as PvE dungeons where you'll go to farm gear. PvP is getting its own location as well, known as Mount Ida. There's a whole lot more detail in this Facebook post of exactly what's going to be changing if you want to check it out. Now, we still don't have a release window, but seeing as this rebooted version of RaiderZ has been in development for, I guess, around 5 years now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more soon. They have also been releasing over time several videos of the in-development remake. You know, I had to go back and confirm because I wasn't exactly sure, but yes, I did in fact play the original version of RaiderZ all the way back in 2012, if you can believe it. And you know what? Rewatching that video, it doesn't look half bad. Like, I would definitely check out a rebooted version of this game. It's kind of cool. In preparation of the Western launch, Lost Ark has released a gameplay systems overview video. In it, they cover some of the basics of the game's classes, skill customization, exploration, sailing, the stronghold system, dungeons, raids, and PvP. It's basically just a overview of some of the major systems and things to do. It's definitely worth giving a look if you're at all interested in the game. Now, what I want to really talk about though is the fact that at this point I've sunk about 60 hours into Lost Ark, between the Western preview event and then spending a bunch of time on the Russian servers. I gotta say, I am fully invested and definitely cannot wait for the Western release. While I know that at some point progression and upgrading my gear is likely to become a major grind, everything about the game so far leading up to that point has just been so much fun, and it's clear that even 60 hours in, I'm just scratching the surface. For starters, the combat is fantastic. It's super impactful, very weighty feeling abilities with great animations and sounds. Every one of the classes I've tried so far has been fun, and there's still quite a few more classes that I want to check out. Fighting the trash mobs are fairly simple. You just group them up and cleave them down using AoE attacks and things like that. But it's the boss battles where things get really interesting and engaging. Doing things like Guardian raids, which are sort of like Monster Hunter fights, they really require you to learn and react to the boss's different telegraphed attacks and phases. And it really rewards playing well with properly timing dodges and evades that lets you continue DPSing the boss, and it punishes bad play because if you get hit, you'll get knocked down, and then the escape out of that knockdown is on a fairly long timer, so a lot of the time you'll just be completely vulnerable to taking a lot of damage. I've just really enjoyed not only the feel, but the actual mechanics of combat in this game. But beyond the combat, there is just so much in this game to see and do. All of the various zones, the dungeons, the sailing systems where you visit these islands. I mean, I even stepped foot into the PvP, but that also looks really fun. Bottom line is, I'm just really looking forward to diving into the game. I'm gonna stop it with spending time on the Russian servers because I don't want to burn myself out. Yeah, but definitely expect to see more coverage from me because Lost Ark is most certainly going to be a game that I will be playing. Mortal Online 2 got a bunch of new content ahead of its upcoming release. A recent patch added the first iterations of house decorating, their new armor sets, a player journal that updates with information you come across in the world. There was also a host of new enemies, bosses, and skills, as well as fishing changes, and quite a bit more. Now, beyond the update, we did also recently learn that the game has received some substantial funding thanks to an Epic Games mega grant. This will be going towards the various additional updates they have planned in the coming months and years, along with an eventual move to Unreal Engine 5. So Mortal Online 2 leaves early access and officially launches on January 25th, and I'm going to be really curious to see what people think of this hardcore PvP MMO. You know, it has been playable for a little while now, having come out in Steam Early Access just in November, a couple of months ago. Although I gotta say, being fully open and playable, the player base has been fairly small according to SteamDB. They've been peaking around 1,000 concurrent daily players, although I do suspect we'll see an uptick for the official launch later this month. I guess I'm curious to see just how popular a hardcore PvP MMO can possibly get. Embers Adrift, the game that was formerly known as Saga of Lucimia, plans to launch sometime later this year. So we've got a brand new MMO coming. In a recent update, they highlighted various improvements made to the game's combat, progression, and character creation, along with saying that development is going well and that they expect the game to be ready for release in 2022. Now, Embers Adrift is described as a PvE sandbox MMO focused on group play with challenging content, as well as an emphasis on exploration and immersion. So for example, there are no mini-maps in the game and there aren't even any quest hubs. It's really meant to be this immersive exploration MMO experience. The game is being developed by Stormhaven Studios, a team of 11 people. Yes, 11 people are making this MMO, so it is worth keeping that in mind when you consider the game and you look at this footage. Despite the limitations of such a small team, they do say that they are passionate about the genre and its community, and they want to deliver a truly unique MMO experience. I gotta say though, looking at the combat especially, it does not look very engaging. I'll try to keep an open mind though, and you know, props to the 11 people who are trying to make an MMO. That is quite an undertaking. The VR MMO Zenith, The Last City, now has an official launch date, and it's coming very soon, entering Steam Early Access later this month on January 27th. Now, I gotta say, this is without a doubt one of the best looking VR MMOs I've ever seen. I have played a couple of them. Specifically, I spent a bunch of time with Orbis VR, and I enjoyed that game. That said, I probably won't even try Zenith because VR games still to this day make me feel super sick after like just a couple of minutes. You know, I suffered through like hours of trying to play VR Skyrim because it was really cool and a lot of fun, but I also felt like I was gonna puke like half the time. I gotta tell you, it makes me sad. It makes me very sad. But hey man, if VR does not make you ill, like look at this. This looks really cool. I'm pretty jealous of anyone who is gonna get to play and enjoy this and not feel sick. Interestingly enough, apparently they are planning to release a non-VR version of the game some point later down the road, so maybe I'll get to try it, although I don't know, like how good will a non-VR version of a VR game be? I mean, I get it with like VR chat or something, but a non-VR version of this VR MMO, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. Here's some exciting news that I wasn't expecting. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is getting a sequel, and it might be coming out this year. So this information comes from the games reporter Jeff Grubb, who said that we can expect to hear something about this game rather significant at some point before E3. He went on to say that there is a chance it gets released in 2022, but more likely it will be coming in early 2023. You know, whenever it arrives, a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order is absolutely on my highly anticipated list. I really enjoyed the first game, and it kind of kick-started my like renewed interest in the Star Wars franchise. And you know what? Hey, in general, I'm just happy to see that there are more Star Wars games being made that aren't from EA. Although I do want to reiterate just how much I would love a Star Wars The Old Republic 2. I think an MMO in that universe with updated visuals and gameplay could be just amazing. I'm not holding my breath. SOTOR 2 is probably not going to happen. In the meantime, I will enjoy some more single-player romps through the Star Wars universe. Dying Light 2 came out last week and said that completing their game would take roughly 500 hours, to which people went, that is way too long. And you know what? I get it. That is a hefty number at just about 20 days worth of playtime. Although they did later clarify that just the main story itself would take about 20 hours to do. But if you wanted to do the main story and all the side quests, it could take 80 hours. And specifically that 500 hour mark was if you were to max out the game. So all main and side quests, all of the different choices and endings, visiting every location, listening to all of the dialogue, and finding all of the collectibles. I will say I'm sort of two minds on this topic. You know, on one hand, you definitely don't want to feel like a game is bloated and that it's just full of filler content, but also, you know, it's nice if you are enjoying a game if there is more of that game to enjoy. You know, I doubt I would play anywhere near 500 hours of Dying Light 2, although there are games that I have spent that much time on. I don't know, man, it's kind of hard to say. I guess I'm not sure where I stand on this one. Although I did really like the first Dying Light. Checking out my Steam tracker, I guess I only played that for 20 hours. I thought it was way more, but yeah, it's really tough to say. You know, I guess if anything, good for anyone who wants to continue to play Dying Light 2 for a long time, and ultimately I just hope the game turns out good. Planetside 2 is trucking along. In fact, they've got some new content coming soon. The upcoming Osher update will be adding an island archipelago location for players to fight over. This new map is meant to emphasize the use of strategic and logistical play in the game. Players will be spawning in on these fleet carriers, and then they can deploy on land or air vehicles or just jump off and swim. As part of the update, they've also just re-engineered how water works in the game, making it a proper part of the environment. Both vehicles and infantry can traverse through water. Water will also provide these tactical challenges, as most bases will have several points of approach surrounded by water. The map will also contain a number of open field and handcrafted bases, 2 new facility types, and a variety of other interesting things and locations. This update is currently in testing and will be officially going live sometime soon. Believe it or not, Final Fantasy XIV's Endwalker expansion launched over a month ago at this point, and, well, the game is still experiencing issues. While things have calmed down, there are still queue times and instability problems for some of the game's servers. They have continued to post updates on the steps and processes being made to alleviate these issues, which include things like adding new data centers and reopening world transfers. The game is also expected to go back on sale later this month. As you might recall, they halted sales for a time to try to help take pressure off of these servers, limiting the new people joining the game. It's so crazy, man, that Final Fantasy XIV truly a game suffering from success. And I gotta say, I didn't expect it to still be an issue. You know, normally with new MMO or expansion launches, we expect the servers to be rough for a few days, maybe 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, but a full month later, you know, it speaks to both the game's popularity as well as just how unprepared they were for the number of people trying to log in. They do claim this is largely in part to those semiconductor shortages that we've mentioned in the past. Whatever the reasoning is, it's both unfortunate and I guess good. I mean, again, congratulations to Final Fantasy XIV for its popularity, but also, you know, I hope things get better soon for the sake of the people who want to play the game. Okay, now on to some of the new game reveals. First, we've got Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. This is a new standalone expansion for the classic arcade shooter. The game was like just announced, but also it's launching this month, coming out on January 25th. It is priced at $19.99, so maybe that should set your expectation in terms of the size and scope of this thing. For some reason, I've got a positive association with Serious Sam, even though I think I've only briefly played one of the games. I've always thought these games look really, really cool. The next new reveal was Leap, a fast-paced multiplayer first-person shooter that features 60-player battles, vehicles like hoverboards and mechanical moose. There are exosuits where you're going to have these unique abilities, and there's a big focus on traversal and movement systems. Although I will say, I don't know exactly what kind of game this is. I'm not sure if it's a battle royale, if it's an objective-based team game, if it's focused on deathmatch. I'm really not sure. We'll have to wait to find out more, but this will be coming soon to Steam's early access. And then the last new reveal we had this week was Forever Skies, a first-person action survival game. You are returning to Earth that has been destroyed by ecological disaster. You're flying on these high-tech airships, expanding, rebuilding, and repairing, scavenging for resources to survive, and looking for a cure to a mysterious illness. The trailer for this looks pretty neat, and this one will also be coming into early access sometime soon. As for recent releases, we have Monster Hunter Rise, the PC version of God of War, and then Anacrusis, that sci-fi co-op Left 4 Dead style shooter. And then also PUBG went free to play this week if for some reason you still have yet to play the game. And with that, we will be wrapping up this week's episode. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one, all right? Keeping it brief, keeping it short. We don't need some crazy outro. I don't have much else to say. That's the news. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.